Welcome to the Stronger Tides Podcast, the podcast for small business entrepreneurs and corporate executives to learn more about increasing their client or employee retention through a group cruise program. Ready to drop anchor? Here's your host, travel advisor Rita Perez.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Stronger Tides Podcast. I am so excited for today's episode because I have a big announcement for you. As you know, I have been talking for quite some time now, a couple weeks, that we are going to be transitioning into the Cruise Retreat podcast, and I can officially say that will be happening next week. And as part of that transition, I have a super awesome surprise for you. But first, let me give you some tangible content that you can take with you and get you a little excited for next week's launch and the special surprise. So, I don't think I've ever mentioned here before, but there are 5 C's to cruise ship retreat planning. And these are 5 kind of bases that you need to cover in order to help take your cruise retreat at sea idea to a tangible plan. So the 5 C's are cruise, shocker, calculate, calendar, curriculum, and captivate. So let's go over a little of each one of them. We're just going to take a little taster to get you ramped and ready to go for next week. So our first C is cruise. What kind of cruise will you sail on your retreat at sea? Where will it sail to or from? And when? All very important questions that you need to answer before you really get started in the deep diving of planning your cruise ship retreat. You need to know this because this is going to answer a lot of your other questions that are going to come down along the road. And cruise, like I've mentioned before, it can be an ocean cruise. It can be a river cruise. You can be on a large ship. You can be on a small ship. You can be on a contemporary ship. You can be on a luxury ship. It all depends on what your goals are for the cruise ship retreat. Moving on to number 2 is calculate. Your budget needs to take into consideration all of the onboard planning elements. Now, I do believe here on this podcast, I have mentioned how much more economical as far as budget a cruise ship retreat is versus a hotel land retreat. So moving into that sector, so we know that off the bat, so you're going to be able to save some money, or whatever budget you do have, you're going to be able to stretch it out a little bit more. So you can maybe upgrade some rooms, do some fancy dining, maybe do some hors d'oeuvres one night. But really, to give you a baseline of where to start, you need to be able to calculate your budget. And that includes items such as the rooms, the cabins. That includes any special food and beverage that you're going to need. And that includes special HVAC support that you're going to need from the ship as well. And I have something that's going to help you out with this. But we're going to move on to the calendar portion. So this is our 3rd C. The calendar. What does your planning timeline look like based on the major planning milestones of cruise ship retreat planning? One of the most popular questions that I have been getting, aside from how is the travel industry doing right now, is are people doing cruise ship retreats? And, the obvious answer is no, nobody's doing cruise ship retreats right now because sailings aren't happening right now. The real question that I get from that is kind of like where the timeline is, because I'm talking to a lot of people who I think the assumption is that you can plan and it doesn't take that much time, and that you'll probably be sailing in a couple months planning a cruise ship retreat. And that is not the case. And we're going to go over more of the timelines, but you definitely need more than a couple months to be planning. And there are major planning milestones along the way that need to happen and that you need to be aware of. And this can help in terms of not only planning the cruise ship retreat, but maybe planning your overall operational calendar for the year. So maybe you're planning your cruise retreat for X month. So a bulk of your planning in your timeline is going to happen in X months. But what if X months is the time of year when you are really you're inundated with so many either requests or projects, or you're trying to wrap up things. So maybe it might not really work when you were ideally thinking. So that's something we're going to talk about too, your timing and the planning calendar. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about your curriculum. What elements do you need to include in your educational programming? Because that is, one of the reasons that you're doing this retreat at sea or retreat on the river is that you want to have an educational component. Whether you are a corporate company that's taking your employees on a retreat, or if you're a small business owner and you want to take your clients on a retreat, you are there to teach them something on board, on top of having all the fun of being cruising and being on a vacation. So what are you going to include, and kind of what should a day look like, or what can a day look like? That is what you need to consider when you're thinking about your curriculum. And our last C is captivate. And this is the one, all the C's that we talked about before are very important in the planning. They're necessary things that need to happen that you need to consider. Just as necessary is this that gives me warm fuzzies and butterflies, the captivate, because you want to make your people not only learn something new and do a lot of bonding and relationship building while you're on the retreat, but you just want them to have fun and have them enjoy themselves because they did come out here for you. So you don't want everything to be humdrum most of the time. So how will you surprise and delight your attendees outside of the educational program? That is what Captivate is all about. So we have cruise, calculate, calendar, curriculum, and Captivate. Now, last year, you'll know that I came out with a mini course called Retreat Anchor. It was for the corporate side, and that was to get you to plan out some of these aspects so you can take your retreat idea, cruise ship retreat idea, from just an idea to an actual tangible plan, so that when you work with me, your travel advisor, you can just be like, okay, here, Rita, this is everything that I want to do. And we can have a strategy session and work out what are the things that'll work, what won't work, and what we have to make tweaks on. So I am super excited to announce that I am converting that mini course to more of a toolkit, so it's actually more bite-sizable and less overwhelming for you to accomplish these tasks. So there's going to be templates, there's going to be question and answer type things, there's going to be lots of ideas that is going to help you get from point A to point B in this very important first planning stage of your cruise ship retreat. And so as I am launching that, we are going to have the cruise ship retreat series coming on the podcast next week. Woo! So that is a 5-day series. Yes, it's very exciting. I normally come on this podcast once a week, every Tuesday morning to you, but I'm going to come every single weekday next week to you, and we are going to discuss a little bit more in depth each of those 5 C's to cruise ship retreat planning. And the toolkit will be available at that time, so you can go ahead and purchase that. So while you are listening to me on the podcast, you can reference the toolkit in front of you and, just work the magic together. It's really going to be very complimentary that you can work on the toolkit and you can listen to the podcast at the same time. If you don't have the toolkit yet, that is fine. These podcasts are going to be on this podcast station for quite some time. I don't have any plans to eliminate it. In addition to that, I'm going to be offering you, my loyal podcast listeners, a special discount to that toolkit. So normally the toolkit is going to be priced out at $47. But for you, my podcast listeners, thank you so much for your support. The past 6+ months that we've been on this podcast, I'm reducing that to you for $27. Please keep a lookout on this podcast or on my social medias, specifically LinkedIn and Instagram. I will give you more details on how you can go ahead and grab the toolkit so you're ready to go for Monday. I'm still working out all the little details, so I don't have them to give you now, but please email me, stick to my social media, and I will have more details for you. Or I might just hop on another surprise podcast later on this week and give you those details so you can be all set for Monday. Now, these aren't going to be lengthy sessions that happen next week. This is really so that we can go and get into the meat of what you can do, capturing the cruise, calculate, calendar, curriculum, and captivate. So we're going to dive a little bit into each of the 5 C's more. Dive into how you can maximize the use of your toolkit. And then from there, I guess we could have a chat and strategize a little bit on your own retreat cruise. So that is it for me today. I am so stinking excited. I can't wait to see you again next week here on the podcast. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Woohoo! You are going to get me all next week for the cruise retreat series. I can't wait. Thank you so much for listening, guys. I will see you next week or sooner. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Stronger Tides podcast. Please subscribe to our podcast. And if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating or a share with your colleagues. Find us on social media at Rita Ventures Group Cruising and online at ritaventures.net. Until next time, happy sailing.